Welcome back. We are still covering the business of Oddity Tech, and so we're going to continue from scale, margin, and efficiency. That's where we left off in the last video. If you are not caught up, please go back to episode 4, watch that, and then come back here and continue. So this was the last slide I was covering, basically the business of Oddity in terms of numbers, the revenue, gross margin, how much of their EBITDA they convert to free cash flow, and so on. So now we move on and go look at other aspects of their business. So we look at one of the things I like to look at is peer comparison. How do they compare to their peers, businesses that are either larger or similar size? So how are they comparing to these businesses? So Oddity in the trailing 12 months did $596 million in revenue compared to the peers that I'm looking at are much larger in general. So Elf Cosmetics, which is pretty popular, is roughly double their size, and then there is Estee Lauder doing roughly 15 billion. L'Oreal, which is the largest, the big gorilla in the group, doing 42 billion annualized revenue, and then there is Coty, which has, I think, licenses from Gucci, Burberry, and other brands, doing 6 billion revenue, right? In terms of revenue growth, you can see that Elf is kind of outpacing everyone else, and Oddity is also growing at a healthy clip. And their CEO has said, and their management team has kind of indicated that they want to grow at a controlled pace rather than, so in many quarters they've grown, I think, excess of 50%, but they've explicitly said they have a certain growth algorithm in mind. They want to keep their growth rate roughly close to 20% or just exceeding 20%, and EBIT margins also, EBITDA margins, adjusted EBITDA margins also, just north of 20%. So that's the algorithm they want to follow, to leave some demand on the table and kind of grow into that demand in the future. So anyways, they have a decent growth rate, and you can see Elf and Oddity definitely lead this pack. In terms of gross margin, almost, cosmetics is just a, it's just a high gross margin business. The materials that go into actually creating the formulations are not that expensive, or cosmetics etc not that expensive, so almost everyone in the group has a healthy gross margin in the same range. In terms of EBIT margin, if you subtract out basically the cost of marketing, R&D, and other expenses, you can see that either the very scaled up player, which is L'Oreal, is doing close to 20%, or Oddity is doing pretty well, and they're kind of leading the pack here, and everybody else is kind of in a similar range. Although I would say that Elf also has a lot of room to grow given the speed at which they're going, and the gross margin level, the gross margin. So they have room to grow. But Oddity is doing pretty well for a company this small and growing at a decent pace and growing profitably. Is kind of unique combination, because L'Oreal already has that unaided brand awareness, which through which customers come back to them again and again. They have many established brands, Garnier and Maybelline, and things like that. So people know all those brands, so they can come back to them without spending too much of their revenue. Like they're a mature player, they don't have to spend too much of their revenue to attract customers back. But Oddity growing at the same clip is quite impressive. In terms of efficiency on their asset base, Oddity again kind of outshines everyone else in their peer group. And revenue per employee, they have one of the good numbers right behind Elf, which is at 2.4 million. So overall, I think they compare quite favorably within their peer group. Now, let's talk about what are some of the opportunities that lie in their future. What are some of the opportunities they can capitalize on? So first thing is, let's just first go through this table, right? So this is a study done by Metrolo, which is an e-commerce analytics company, and what this shows you is that generally beauty shoppers are not very loyal. And so this study was done on small to mid-sized cosmetic brands who are selling purely online in US and Europe, right? And so basically people going online and buying them either through their D2C stores, their own store, and maybe some of them are also selling through Amazon. So what this is telling that, so there are many columns. Let's just focus on retention rate, right? So this is basically customer retention rate, and another way to look at that is, if in a given year, let's say in a given period, in a given 12 months, 100 customers shop with you, then in the next 12 months, in the over the next 12 months, how many of those customers will come back, right? So if in the first 12 months 100 customers kind of come to me, like to my e-commerce store, and buy hair care items or hair care products from me, in the next 12 months only 13 of them will come back. So that's what these numbers are kind of telling us, and this is what we will focus on for now. So the customer retention rate in general is pretty low. So the people switch a lot, they go to different brands. Like this varies between different categories. You can see skincare is a little higher at 21.8. Full range brands which offer hair care, skin, or maybe cosmetics, etc., have a higher customer retention rate, and so on and so forth, right? The average is still pretty low at 23%. And so Oddity kind of stands out in this group in this regard. So in their 12-month net revenue repeat rate, which means the amount that people spend, their customers spend in the current 12 months, like if they spent $100 in the last 12 months, and then in the next 12 months they again spent $100, which is quite rare in terms of revenue repeat rate. Even in this case, if you can see that 30% of the people are coming back and maybe spending 10% more, 20% more, something like that. It's very hard to get to 100% kind of revenue repeat rate. Maybe you can get to a 40% or something like that if you are an average player and your ticket size increases, but most of their customers drop off. But Oddity kind of stands out in this crowd, and with a outstanding customer kind of revenue repeat rate. Elf also discloses their, in one of the Salesforce studies, they've disclosed their website kind of retention rate, people coming back to their website every 12 months. And so for Elf, that number is roughly 60%. So 60% of people come back in the next 12 months. The stickiness of the customers, I think, is single kind of very important factor that to look at in terms of customer loyalty, that they are able to retain their customers, says that their products are valuable or perceived to be valuable. And in the last quarter, they revealed that more than half of their revenue is coming from repeat customers. Another way of kind of looking at this story is, so Elf has been around since I think 2008, and they have been, I think, online since 2011. I mean, they have been online since many years. So online was their first channel, then they went to smaller retail stores, then they went to Target. Like, they have their own story, but they were one of the first players who were digital native, Elf Cosmetics, and then they grew from there. They went into retail, and now they are partnering directly with large retail stores, Target, Walmart, and so on and so forth. So Elf, which has been around for a long time, so these statistics are from SimilarWeb. You can see that Il Makiage has been able to attain a similar rank to them in US. And if you look at their traffic statistics, 2.5 million monthly visits versus 2.9, with a higher kind of average duration of people browsing for over 3 minutes per visit. So if you look at it, Oddity or El Makiage came to US, as I mentioned in the last video, roughly 2018, right? So Elf had a 5-year start, and so El Makiage just kind of closed that gap pretty quickly. And even within that, if you look at 94% of Il Makiage or Oddity's revenue comes online, right? So that 90% will roughly come to $560 million. So they're generating $560 million by making sales, by selling their cosmetics and skincare online, compared to Elf, who generates roughly 21% of their revenue, which amounts to roughly $237 million. So at the similar traffic level, Il Makiage is actually able to generate much higher revenue, kind of more than double of what their very competent Elf, I would say, is a very competent peer, is generating, which kind of speaks to their ability and the management's execution. What other kind of opportunities can we look at? So they basically are serving 4 million customers. Like, customers who literally bought stuff from their store online, and then they have another cohort of users. A user is basically anybody who has gone to their website and they have Oddity has collected through either Spoiled Child or Il Makiage at least 50 discrete data points on that user through quiz, through kind of asking their preferences for different kind of looks, or any other way that they define a data point in which they can get to know their user better, their preferences better, right? So they claim they have 50 million unique users on their platform, and again, as I said, each user will have at least 50 discrete data points, which gives them roughly 2 billion unique data points on these users, and they can kind of bring products to the market to convert these users to customers. So there are 4 million customers currently, and then top of the funnel, 50 million unique users. I don't know why did they frame it this way, but if you just multiply 50 million users with, and each has at least 50 million discrete points, that gives you, I think, already a 2.5 billion data points number. So they should have at least 2.5 billion data points, but this is how they reveal it in their filing. I'm not sure why do they do it that way, but anyway, so it should be more than 2.5 billion. So their filing also suggests they leverage the data in 5 ways. First is to generate revenue, obviously, to remarket and retarget these users, to tell them, what products exactly will be right for them, to use that data to develop new products or enter into new categories, and to enhance their machine learning kind of algorithm, right? So as I mentioned in the last video, they already have 2 brands and they're coming out with 2 more brands in the second half of 2025. Um, and how else does this data help them is basically to identify the correct products or formulations, etc. Because they are selling purely online, they need to, if user does not like a certain product or a shade of a foundation that they ordered, they will most likely return it, right? And that increases your return rates, that reduces your gross margin, and because now you're paying extra for the transport and everything. So they need to ideally not make too many mistakes in matching a user with the right product. Otherwise, it may hit their margins. So that's what they're saying here, is basically that it helps them identify the right products, because and helps the user try the products somehow, or eliminate the need to try the product physically in a store, which is, I would say, for a cosmetics product or a skincare care product, sounds really hard to do. But if you can collect this data on the user, you should be able to kind of, according to Oddity, you should be able to kind of achieve reasonable conversion ratios and reasonable accuracy, precision on your matching algorithm. Um, and so, in my own thoughts, just in terms of the data points, they collect some data through quizzes, etc. I don't know how hard is it for other brands to collect the same data, but I think is just that, how do they actually, they already have had some experience over the last 5 6 years to train their models and try to match the right users with the right products online. As I showed in the last slide, their conversion ratios are pretty high from the people who are visiting the website and actually buying a product, better than Elf, who has been around for much longer. So to some extent, you can buy into this story, but again, I think collecting this data from a large kind of user base. So Elf has, I think, 5 million members under its loyalty program. I think other people can also collect this data. Can they use that data equally effectively? We need to see that, probably in the future. Oddity is also pretty efficient in terms of their marketing. As you can see, they are a profitable business. They are spending on advertising marketing, but still their EBIT margins are one of the best among their peer group. So, and one interesting thing to note about them is most of their advertising spending is concentrated in the first quarter. They don't do it in the, typically you'll see brands doing in the fourth quarter when there's holiday season, or there is sales and like basically all kinds of discounts going on. And so generally fourth quarter is heavy spending for many brands, but they kind of thoughtfully don't do it in the fourth quarter, because now you are bidding, for getting the right spots, you're bidding against everyone else on those advertising spots, and then you may have to pay more, right, for the same spots. So they cleverly have moved that kind of expense to the first quarter, is when they spend the most aggressively, and then they let the cadence and the repeat customers roll the revenue throughout the year. So this is something smart that they do to avoid going in a crowded advertising market, and kind of shifting their advertising spend and using it smartly in the first quarter. They also claim they have one of the largest, like they are able to use influencer marketing quite efficiently. They have the largest on-demand, kind of media content from influencers and so on, that they can use, and you can also see it on their website. There's a lot of influencer content on their website, which they say helps them convert the customers better. And then these are moonshots. I don't know how successful they will be. I mean, we need to see, but they're saying they're using these AI technologies to kind of extract hyperspectral information from the images, like from the camera images that the users will upload, like this will come in brand 3. They'll be able to detect facial blood flows, monitor heart rate, and create all sorts of hemoglobin maps. These kind of like insights from that data to match their users to exactly the right product which will suit them the best. So, and then there is AI-based molecule discovery. So these are some of the opportunities that you should look at, that the business can capitalize on in the future. Now let's move on into the risks. So the first thing is obviously the competition, right? Cosmetics and beauty industry is very competitive, and there are low barriers to entry, just in terms of launching a brand. Obviously, it's hard to scale it, but it's low barriers to entry for someone to move into this space. And there's also, I think, as I said before, and I showed in that first slide, in terms of users switch a lot. Like they're not very loyal to a single brand, so it's easy to switch. And so these are some of the examples. Just these celebrities entering into the space. Rihanna's Fenty Beauty is now 602 million worth of revenue. Priyanka Chopra's Anomaly Hair Care is doing 542 million in the last year or so. Kylie Cosmetics and so on. So all of these like celebrities have entered this space, and you can see that it's a very influencer-led industry. Like I guess that's how women make their decisions. They look at influencers or people they like, and the kinds of look they kind of emulate that probably in their looks. And so it looks like that's how this industry is kind of driven. And it's influences you, it's very hard to control influences, like, right? And so new people can come in and take away market share and chip into this. Even they can create 10 million brands, 20 million brand, and obviously Rihanna has created an outstanding brand. But you can see that people can enter easily, use their influence, and kind of attract an audience away from you, unless obviously you have somehow scientifically proven much better product. If you crack that, then yes, probably you can stay far ahead of everyone else. What are the risks? So companies going through acquisitions, and acquisitions can go wrong. They can go wrong in many different ways. You don't know many internal problems that may be going on in a company that you acquire. It's very hard to know everything upfront. There may be cultural problems in integrating that company into your company. New people going in and coming in, going out, and so on. So that may cause cultural fit problems. So growing through acquisitions, yes, some people can do that very efficiently and very well. But not in so in this case we'll need to so that's one risk. Some acquisitions may go wrong, they may have to write that down. And in from what I've read, more acquisitions go wrong than right. It's hard to get acquisitions right. The company is based in Israel. They are registered in Israel, so they're a foreign company, and 60% of their workforce is based in Israel. So any geopolitical tensions or something goes wrong in Israel, or if there are, let's say, tensions between US and Israel, which are also now boiling up, some kind of sanctions or anything that goes wrong will definitely affect this company. Oddity Labs, which I said before, the labs which is focusing on the computer vision and the molecule discovery, no real products have come out of that yet, and they have not been monetized, and it has been a cost center into which the company has been aggressively investing. Now it may turn out really well, and great products may come out of it, which put them far ahead of competition, or it may take longer, things may get stretched, and so on and so forth. So it's an R&D kind of cycle. It's hard to predict even if you work hard on it. So that is also another risk. Things may stretch out, or it may continue to be a cost center and not really generate much returns. But insofar you can see that they have made a place for themselves within the online channel, right? So that's the sole channel that they're trying to crack. um, what else? And so, right, I mean, I mentioned that the founder controls 76% voting rights within the business, right? And gave a couple of examples where it's not wrong to pay yourself out, like have a big payday. So, for example, in roughly 400 million plus that was raised in the in the IPO, 337 million actually went to the selling shareholders, and founder was a large selling shareholder. And I also mentioned that in the last year, the founder and his sister pay themselves, more than 3% of the revenue, 11.6 million and 5.8 million, 17 something million. That's more than 3% of the revenue in bonuses related to spoiled child targets, right? So I mean, founder can take, I mean, if the founder does a great execution, then obviously the company can go to the moon. But if it can also go the other way. So because this has absolute control, a sounding board made up of minority shareholders may not be able to direct the company in the right way, and things can go orally wrong. So that may something that can backfire. And a couple of other examples is, these are a couple of transactions that you would look and frown at. They're not very large, but if you look at their 20F, you can look at in 2017 there was this Cosmo Fill Industries, which was owned by Mr. Holtzman, who's the founder, and they were providing them the company with filling and assembling. So like, why would a company that you control be like, this is not an arrangement that I like in general. That a company that the founder owns, the founder clearly controls this company and he controls the other company, and the other company is now a supplier to this company. The only reason you can ignore this is the amount is very small, like it's $100,000. So I don't know why this arrangement was made, but there was this in 2017. There was this arrangement of another company controlled by founder providing some filling packaging services to Oddity. And then there is another one where founder was given a loan in 2020 worth 3 million, and it was almost at a zero interest rate of 0.49. I guess the interest rates were pretty low at that time, and then it was repaid. So there was some loan. I mean, I'm not saying none of these are red flags, but it's just something to know. Probably, all of these things that I've mentioned now, probably they can be yellow flags, but they're not red flags. But so, something could go wrong if the founder takes some missteps. How about valuation at it's currently trading at $36.5 roughly, which is EV to sales ratio of 3 with an EBIT margin of 20% and gross margin of 72%. So there's plenty of room to kind of increase that EBIT margin. And the management has kind of indicated many times that there's plenty of room to kind of grow the EBIT margin. The underlying business is much more profitable than the 20% EBIT margin shows, but they're reinvesting those profits. So they have a lot of room to grow. So if you look at that, and they are $500 million revenue, like L'Oreal is 42 billions. So maybe, I mean, all of them can grow, but they definitely have a lot of room to take share, and maybe, because they're trying to dominate the online, and there is evidence that they're doing it really well. If you compare them, for instance, with Elf, which is a very efficient player, like they're doing it really well. They want to conquer the online channel, which will definitely hold a substantial amount of sales, which will be substantial sales channels for beauty and cosmetics in the future. So if they dominate the channel, they have a lot of room to grow that revenue. The company is already buying back shares. They've approved $150 million in a buyback program. They've bought back $10 million in the last quarter. So they're already buying back shares. They're generating free cash flow. So that will already kind of start lifting up their earnings per share and so on. That's it from me. Thanks a lot for watching this second part. Again, this is episode 5 in continuation to episode 4. I hope you basically enjoyed this educational content on Oddity, and please consider joining Discord. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments. Please like the video, and try to share it and hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much, and see you soon.